Good evening and welcome to the Inside Government produced for the spring 2022 semester here at Cayuga Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Our guest tonight is Auburn Superintendent Jeff Pirozzolo, who is in the running for our most often guest in a given year. He and Kathleen Cuddy are going to go out in the parking lot, fight it out. He was one of our first guests of the season, as was she, and is going to be our last regular guest on April 5th with Auburn School District Business Manager Lisa Green to talk about the budget. But a lot has gone on since his appearance last month and what we hope will be a full discussion of the budget in a couple of weeks on April 5th. So we've asked him back in to talk about a couple of items that have occurred. One has been the removal of the mask mandate, the arrest of a school resource officer, and the vote by a Board of Education on a book that was questioned for its appropriateness on the shelves of Auburn High School. We also will talk a little bit about process because as of yesterday, people can pick up petitions to run for the school board, and we'll have that forum here the first week of May. Welcome back, champ.
Well, thank you, and that was a mouthload you just had right there.
But I do think you are. It's either you and Kathleen Cuddy, the mayor, and I think Brian Colbin. He hasn't been in office for 2 years, and he still has a record there. So let's talk about masks. First of all, how are you and your staff doing? I should ask that.
We're busy. You know, we're keeping busy.
Stuff going on.
Oh yeah, we got a lot going on. We've been going for 2 years straight, and the mask mandate being lifted made it very nice.
So why did you remove the mandate?
Well, you know, we as superintendents, we tried to work together as a full county with the same message. Most of the superintendents were in agreement. We wanted to make it optional for our kids and try to get back to some of that normalcy.
So was that a decision by superintendents, by school boards? How was it?
Superintendents. Superintendents, we all met, and you know, we had conversations again with Kathleen Cuddy. You know, she was corresponding through email with us, but you know, we decided that 2 years it was enough.
Were you surprised that the governor? I know it came off your spring break, and I know winter break. I know not everybody's on the same winter break, but most upstate school districts were. Were you surprised it was in the middle of the week versus a Monday?
I have been surprised about the timing of everything they've done, including when we went from quarantining from 10 days to 5 days was actually on a Wednesday as well. And it was during a huge spike. So I was a little bit surprised that we lifted the mask mandate, a couple days after winter break.
So you do a regular email to parents on Friday afternoons.
Yes,
I heard that ping about 4:55 in my office. What's your positivity rate right now, roughly?
Again, our positivity, we had over 20 cases last week, and we're over 20 again this week.
Are you so Central New York, as you are aware, has a higher rate than almost double for Central New York, but a lot of that's Onondaga County. Double the rate of the state. Are you surprised that the number's so high in Cayuga County?
Absolutely not. When we take masks off.
So masks off, we still have a low immunization rate, and everybody was on break.
Correct. Correct. So we knew it was going to spike. I mean, common sense is going to tell you, we've kept our rate down pretty good. Again, with masks.
So is that when you give a positivity rate, is that of just students or students and faculty, or do you have a different number for faculty?
Nope, student and faculty. We combine it both.
And some professionals or health professionals are questioning right now, even if those numbers are correct, because we have these home tests.
Well, yeah. And again, we're positive that people aren't reporting a lot of the positive cases to the school district, and probably a lot of people are not even testing their kids or themselves just because it's the common cold season.
Is it common cold, or they don't want to know bad news because they want their kid to go to school?
It could be a little bit of both.
So I asked that because this is in a different district, so it was an interesting piece that was related to me. Child was out. District said, and again, this is not in Cayuga County. I want to make this very clear. District said, come back, you got to have a test, you got to show negative, and the child went back to school and nobody ever asked for a test. So if you're here and you're tested positive and a parent does the right thing and tells you, what's the requirement to come back to school?
So if you test positive, and we do have a lot of parents reporting, they send a picture of the positive COVID test. They have to be out for 5 days, either the day that you tested or the symptoms began. The day you test is day 0, so you're out 5 days after that. And then you may return to school, but you have to wear a well-fitted mask for days 6 through 10.
So is it an honor system in part? So if a parent says, my child, and they don't send the photo of a negative test, and they come back, do you let them in the door, or they do have to show a negative test?
No, they do not have
They
to
do
show
not,
that.
okay.
No, they do not.
So what happens to a child, especially in elementary school, because we went from 6 feet, which was a spacing issue, and even you attested here several times last year, that's a problem because you don't have the space.
Correct.
But the state allowed going from 6 to 3.
Yep.
So what happens if I'm the student who has been vaccinated, but I'm sitting next to somebody who tests positive? What happens to me?
So if you're vaccinated, you don't have to do anything. We just notify the family that there was a possible exposure. If you've been vaccinated and boosted or any of that, we just ask parents to watch to make sure that their child doesn't get sick or have symptoms.
Okay, so the kid sitting next to me is tested positive. I have not been vaccinated. What happens to me?
We have you come into school, and then we test you upon your arrival back to school after the exposure.
Okay, so you might still end up back in the classroom.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because
absolutely.
The goal is to have
we're
children.
not quarantining students anymore. We will do the test right when they come back to school the next day.
So I know you visit your schools on a regular basis. It's most likely a way to get away from Thornton Avenue and there. But you go in there. So that first week back, not talking about the Wednesday, let's talk about the following Monday. You still had a lot of children, because I ended up walking to school that day. Not that I'm in elementary school, but I went with somebody. And there were a lot of children with masks.
Absolutely. Staff, students. Again, that's why I really emphasized it's parents' choice. And for our older kids, it's their choice. But the biggest part that I wanted to push across was just being respectful to people's opinion on it. And we still had a lot of students and staff that are continuing to wear masks.
So that was my question. So how does it look 2 or 3 weeks later? Are there still pockets of students and staff wearing masks?
Absolutely.
And how do you deal with the issue? You talked about respect. I guess I would say the reverse of that is the peer pressure that, I'm the only one. I'm in a class of 18 and I'm the only one with a mask. How do you keep those children from being able to want to wear a mask, but feeling that they have to because of peer pressure to take it off?
And I'm sure it's there. You know, it's human nature, right?
But does the district do anything to?
We have not had one complaint from a parent. I've not heard a complaint from an administrator that they're shaming whether wearing one or not wearing one. I think it's become so accepted over the last 2 years that people aren't even really paying attention to it.
So my last 2 questions on the vaccine issue. One is, do you have any idea of how many students have been vaccinated in the Auburn district?
No, I do not.
So if you're a student who has not been vaccinated, do you have to wear a mask? Or
No.
Okay.
No. It's all optional for all students. And again, you know, we don't want to, you know, an equity. There's an equity piece there, right? So we make
How so?
Versus vaccinated students and not vaccinated students, we wanted to make sure that when we went optional, that it was for all students, regardless of their vaccination status.
So I mentioned the Central New York rate is 2 times higher. I know the state health commissioner, I think today, said she's not really necessarily worried. She's worried, but she's not concerned it's going to shut everything down. Are you concerned about this spike? Specifically, you have this now BA. Now we're going to learn all these. BA, when I used to hear it, was the A team.
Yeah, right.
What is, and we're not going to say what that stood for. Do you worry about the BA variant in the district?
You know, again, as long as the symptoms are mild. And I mean, it's not rocket science, right? We knew when we were taking masks out of schools that we were going to see some type of spike. I would imagine the CDC is saying, this strand isn't that, it's not deadly. We're not seeing as many hospitalizations. Thus, another reason to take masks off. And I'm hearing this new variant coming isn't very potent either. So I think that, yes, we might see kids catching it, but not getting that sick.
So since the mask mandate was removed, have you had to shut down any classrooms?
No.
And are you prepared for a spike? If you have a spike, what's the game plan?
If we have a spike, again, we have ways that we can go remote. We're set up for that.
But that's not the game plan.
Well, no, it's absolutely not the game plan. And again, where it gets tricky is when a lot of teachers end up catching COVID. And we don't have enough teachers because, again, shortage of substitute teachers as well. So that's the thing that you worry about the most.
Have you been able to, I don't want to say solve, that's the wrong word, but have you been able to resolve a lot of your busing issues?
Yeah, we have been working a lot with First Student. It seems like we have conversations every day. They have done some better recruitment. I think we have 2 that are ready to sign in right now. So we've got all of our runs covered right now at this time. And again, knock on wood.
And hopefully the last question on COVID, what's your plan for graduation?
It's going to be great not having masks on outside. Well, we didn't last year, but we still had to be very, very cautious.
So what did you do last year? I'm sorry.
We had a normal graduation last year, and that's what our plan is this year too.
So how did you find out about School Resource Officer William Morrissey?
I received a phone call from Sergeant Gilfus, who's in charge of our SRO program, to tell me that there was an investigation being done.
So you were not one of the individuals sent, like Jeff Digert, the city manager, and Jim Sladen, the police chief. You were not sent one of these letters?
No, I was not.
So not necessarily dealing with the Morrissey issue, but what steps did you take to protect, and until there's a conviction, I still think it's said to be an alleged victim. It's not the word I would use, but I think that's the legal word we'll use. So what steps did you in the district take for the student?
Well, and again, I didn't have to do very much because the police department handled everything. And again, thankfully, the city police and the sheriffs acted as quickly as they did and responded so quickly. Again, we just got to make sure our children are safe, and we just make sure our kids are safe.
So in your view, and I know there's been a lot of other news in the last 2 weeks, do you think this was one student, one assailant, or do you think it was broader than that?
Again, I think it's still an open investigation.
And is the district participating in
that? Whatever requests the sheriff's department needs, we give that to them immediately. But we have not really done any follow-up with it, so we really aren't privy to that information.
And I'm sure, like everyone else, you were surprised that this occurred.
Absolutely.
But it's not unknown in districts across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you prevent these occurrences?
Again, I think that, our police officers are here to serve and protect our community. And I think we need to be more vigilant with everything that we do. And, making sure that, Sergeant Gilfus, again, we're having a lot more communication, a lot more contact, just making sure and checking in and supervising everything that's going on.
And you have a school resource officer. Once Mr. Morrissey was pulled from the high school, you had another officer there the next day, correct?
Within a few days, yes. Yes.
But there was a replacement, so
correct.
There is somebody. Chief Sladen was here last week, I think, or the week before, and he went through the process of how they get people who want to do this, which is obviously because it's tough work.
Yeah, it is.
Just like a teacher's tough work.
It is.
Do you screen, not you personally, but does the district screen people who apply for these jobs?
Well, when it comes to the SROs, I think they like to have the district involved as much as they can. Unfortunately, for the last 6 openings maybe, they just haven't had enough, or they've even had to do interviews. So anybody that pretty much signs up has been coming into the position.
So you have an agreement with the city of Auburn for how long?
We had a 5-year contract. I think we might be in year 2.
So it's in your budget for this year? And,
yes, correct.
And you'll go until the current contract.
Correct.
And that, but I know some things have changed because you now have these other type of SROs.
SPOs, yeah.
SPO.
Oh, yeah, this is year 1 of, we finalized the contract last year.
So can you remind us about the book, All Boys Aren't Blue?
Yes, so again, as you know, we did get some a formal, I think around 8 formal
so you got 8
complaints on the book. So as soon as we received those, we instituted our policy. We got a policy together of around 10 people, I believe.
A committee for this?
Committee, yeah. I'm sorry, committee together with our, and in the policy, it strictly states that the high school principal and the high school librarian have to be part of it. So, of course, Mr. Morgan and Beth Muscuddy were both part of that committee. We had a student, we had teachers, we had
so
a public
do you
library.
name them, or I know some are by title.
Correct,
Right.
some were by title,
Right.
yeah.
But do you name the remainder of?
Yeah, again, somebody that will show interest in wanting to be part of that.
And was one of the individuals who filed the complaint on the committee?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And
Correct.
so that committee met at least twice.
Twice, yeah.
So, first of all, what could they do versus what couldn't they do?
Again, it was really to make sure that the school district followed the policy, and they were making a recommendation whether the book should be pulled off the shelves or stay on the shelves.
But they couldn't restructure the policy, for example.
No, they could not restructure the policy.
So what did that committee recommend?
The committee recommended to keep the book on the shelves, but they did also have a couple caveats. And, I think...
So talk about, first of all, the keep on the shelf. It was either keep it on the shelf or don't keep it.
Correct.
So then they had some caveats. What were the caveats?
The biggest caveat was more parent engagement and involvement. Knowing what books are in the library and helping to come up with a way where if a book may seem sexually inappropriate or not age appropriate, to have some type of mechanism where parents could say, we don't want our children checking out certain books.
So hypothetically, let's say I have a 14-year-old, which would be what, an 8th grader? No.
Get 9th grade.
9th grade. So 9th grader, and I don't want that child, for whatever reason, to take out Huckleberry Finn. I'm not going to pick on the boys or blue. Do I have that right?
You do.
So how does that work?
Currently, right now, you could call up a librarian and say to a librarian, I do not want my child picking out that book.
Do you get many requests like that?
No, we do not.
Do you think this has opened up that discussion?
I think it has. And I do know that Erie 1, BOCES, they're the ones that give out.
This is Buffalo, New York.
Right. And they give out board policies to all school districts in New York State. So they're the ones that really put the board policies together. They send them to school districts. That's what we use for our policy book. We got an email probably last month that Erie 1 was actually looking at this policy because this is popping up all over the country. So
not just because of this book, but there's, whether you say CRT or anything, they're it's all across the board.
Absolutely. So we're waiting to see what that new revised and wording in the policy is. So we're not touching anything right now with the policy.
But the board most likely will look at that.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. The board will look at that.
So was the recommendation to keep the book on the shelves unanimous?
It didn't really say. I think.
No, I know, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It didn't say.
Again, I believe the majority. Well, definitely the majority said, but they didn't really spell it out.
Because I was surprised in the news story it doesn't say the formal vote. Usually it does.
Yeah. No. The recommendation was, this is the recommendation of the community.
So the Board of Education then said, we're
upholding it,
and then they'll go back and look at this decade and a half old policy?
Oh yeah, it's an old 2002 or 3.
So this is over, or can the people who filed the complaint appeal it?
Again, if there's an appeal, then we'll work through.
Well, who's the appeal to?
Well, that's it. We'd have to work through our legal team because there's really nothing stated in the policy about an appeal. But again, listen, we want parents involved in the choices they make with their own kids. I think there's some easy things that we can do to help to let the community know that we are listening. The book staying on the shelf, there's many reasons for that. And we want to make sure that there's books in our library that help each individual child, whether it's...
But you may restructure the whole process of rating books, and just like they do movies.
Well, that seems like an easy thing to do, right?
Oh, they're always suggestions. The suggestions are always easy. It's carrying it out that's the problem.
Correct, when you've got thousands of books in your libraries. But, I think coming up with something hopefully that will be addressed in the new policy when we see it would be, something as easy as having a form for parents to fill out the first day of school. If there's a book that is in our library that you don't want your child to be exposed
to. Only
those
wimpy kids books.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, because there is sometimes that's about behavior.
Correct.
Not very positive behavior.
Correct. Bullying behavior. Yeah.
So, okay. Let's switch total gears. Where are you in your budget process? I know Lisa Green and you were going to be here. You were gracious enough to come in because there was all this other stuff. We could take all this time and not deal with budget, which you'll deal with Lisa Green in 2 weeks. But where are you just right now technically in the budget process?
So right now we're at the point of balancing our budget. When I came in here the last time, we were receiving almost $4 million in foundation aid. The new numbers came out. We lost about $500,000 of that. So it's about 3.5.
How did you lose it?
We don't know yet.
Was it because of one house bills had changes?
It could be because of enrollment numbers, but we noticed every school district that was getting above that 3% lost a portion.
Okay.
In the second runs of numbers. So we don't really know what the reasoning is for that. When we put our budget together, looking at all the inflation, salary increases, everything, all of our expenditures, and the revenues we're getting, we're down probably about $2.5 million.
So what is the next step? You'll do these calculations, and when will you have a budget that you will present to the public?
Lisa is going to go over part of our budget again tonight, and what our board is thinking about for a tax levy. And then, so tonight, we're going to be rolling out, probably going out for a 2.5% tax increase. Our tax limit is 3.
So everyone knows that there's a 2% tax cap, which is not true because other factors calculate into that, and sometimes it can be higher and sometimes it can be lower, which drives districts and municipalities nuts. So will there be any, you were not sure at this time, and this is when you had $500,000 more, any new initiatives in this budget you're going to be presenting?
Oh yeah, there's new initiatives. We've got some add-ons. We are looking at doing, it's called the Spirit Program at our elementary schools for children that are struggling with the traditional class settings, small class sizes. We're also looking at doing a night school at our high school as well for students that are struggling. So we do have 2 big initiatives that we're looking at. Again, with COVID, achievement gaps, those type of things, social emotional issues. We think the creation of these programs could really help a lot of our children.
And when will there be a public hearing on the budget?
The public hearing is actually in May, I believe. So April 5th will be the day that we vote on the budget, the actual budget.
So you will have a vote on April 5th?
By the board, yep. So that's what we're looking at.
And at this point, do you think it'll be unanimous?
I think right now we're in agreement. The tax levy is always an issue that we have. And like
do you think the tax levy versus the spending is the issue? The spending,
The spending, I think we've kept as a minimum as we possibly can. It's always usually the tax levy. And again, being able to go over 3%, we know absolutely would never go out to the community with something like that. We're down to 2.5% right now. And if we do receive extra monies from the state, we're willing to lower that under 2% as well.
and you should have a state budget in 2 weeks anyway.
We're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hoping it'll be.
But you
on
may
time.
not have those numbers before your April 5th meeting.
Well, we're still hoping we
We're still
are.
hoping.
But yeah, we're still
So
hoping.
3 viewer questions. The first one is, you were going to hire a diversity assistant superintendent. Where is the process for a search and interview of those candidates?
So it wasn't a diversity assistant superintendent. It was an executive director for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And tonight we actually have a name that will be voted on by our Board of Education for that position.
Is the public what the name is?
I do not believe they do yet.
Okay. Is it the second question was, is this person a minority?
No, it is not. It's actually a current member that's a director right now in our school district, and she has done a lot of work. We are also looking at also hiring a consultant as well that will be helping with that work. And yes, the consultant is a minority.
And the third question, the viewer question is, with a 76% Auburn High School student graduation rate in June, I'm assuming this is from the last citizen story on this, what steps are being taken to avoid that low rate by the district?
Again, we're trying every step we can. And again, when you look at that graduation rate, which I'm just going to tell you, it was the June graduation rate, not the August graduation rate, which is important because the state goes by the August graduation rate. It's always published in the newspaper what the June graduation
So what's
rate is.
The August rate? Do you have a better number than that?
I think it's around 80%.
Okay.
But still too low. We trust me, we know that. Our issue is getting kids in the doors. And when COVID hit, we tried everything to get children in the doors. But with the hybrid model, we had over 800 kids last year doing remote learning.
Right.
So, our biggest thing right now is getting kids into school and getting them engaged. And it's still a process. We're still struggling with that this year.
So I want to ask you a couple of election questions, not getting your opinion on it, but process issues.
Yeah.
So petitions were available yesterday.
Correct.
So people can go see Shelley Major at the Board of Education, pick up a packet, and they're due at the end of April.
27th, I believe.
27th, okay. How many signatures do you need for something like that?
100.
And so in May, there will be an election. Part of that will be to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Shepard, who resigned back in September to take a job with the district, correct? So is it the first or the fourth place person who gets that?
Well, I don't know. I guess you would want to ask that person. No,
but I meant
right. The top three will get the 3-year position,
okay.
And then whoever comes in fourth will finish out that last.
So
year.
currently on the board, besides Mr. Shepard's vacant position, you have Bill Andre, who's been on the board from different periods twice. Jeff Gasper, who I think is in his second term, and Danielle Wood, who is in her first term, correct?
Correct.
So do you expect that all three of them will seek re-election?
No, I do not. I believe Bill and Jeff have made it known that they will not be rerunning. I believe Danielle would still like to rerun.
So you may only have one person who's an incumbent on the...
Correct.
You had 8 candidates last May, if I remember correctly.
We did.
So it was a little weird for us here in the studio. Do you expect a similar field, a higher field? I just gave you a whole series of...
I would imagine we're going to have, our numbers are going to be up there again. If not 8, maybe even more.
And so I want to ask you the last 2 questions. I ask this to every spring. It's not about who you want, but the first one is, what would you like someone to consider before they run for the school board?
Again, what we look for, and I think our best board members are people that are interested in making kids successful.
So besides children first, what type of traits or habits or the way they conduct themselves? Anything that helps with, because you have 9, in normal times, you have 9 board members. You have 8 right now, which is, and somewhat that's split 4 to 4 on many issues. What are you looking for people, how they handle themselves? Not so much behavioral, but stylistically at meetings.
Someone that comes in that has their own ideas, that's looking to make changes in what's best for children and those perspectives, has some type of budget sense, understands finances, and can work well with others. That's really the key.
So the one thing we didn't get to was capital. I do want to ask you real quickly, where are you on Herman and Genesee? Because Genesee was the one school I think that was behind more than anyone else when it came to renovations. Are we? Yes, you're open because we'd all know you.
Yes, you would.
Where are you on renovations there?
We are actually getting ready to do our punch list. Punch list is at the end of the capital project. We're going to start doing the walkthroughs with the contractors.
For just that school or all the other ones?
All 4 of them.
All 4 of them.
We still are dealing with heating issues, like I said the last time, and I think that's going to be more of a process that we're going to have to continue to look, because, again, this is going to be the first year that we're going to have 4 elementary schools with air conditioning. So I think that's going to be a process. So that's going to be ongoing. But as far as completing, we are ready to get ready with the punch list. So we're hoping to have grand openings here within the next month.
So about 5 months behind schedule.
Oh, absolutely.
So when does the next phase kick off?
That's supposed to be in June.
Okay. Well, when you and Lisa Green are here in 2 weeks, you can, if you don't mind, giving us an update of what the next phase is, because by that time you will hopefully be through your punch list.
We hope to be.
We do want to thank Auburn Superintendent of Schools, Jeff Pirozzolo, who's been very gracious to come in to give us a district update. As we mentioned, he'll be on in 2 weeks with District Business Manager Lisa Green to talk about the budget, where they are, and by that time we will hopefully have a state budget, so they'll have even better numbers at that time. We'll return in just a minute with Beyond the Front Page show with Auburn Doubleday's Don Lewis, who's one of the owners of the Doubledays, talk about what is the upcoming year look like at Falcon Park and how did they do last year in their inaugural season. We'll be back next Tuesday with Auburn Housing Authority's Executive Director Stephanie Hodgkinson and Auburn YMCA Camp Director Melissa Kanga Cartner will come in to talk about the Y Camp. We had to reschedule her from last week, and we're delighted she'll be with us on Tuesday. Next Thursday, we will have Cayuga County Legislature Chairman David Gould back in to give us a county update, and Dr. Adam Effler of the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council who'll be in. We haven't had him in a while to talk about what the quality of the water is in Owasco Lake. As we mentioned, petitions are available at the Auburn School Board's offices on Thornton Avenue. You can talk to Shelley Major and pick up those packets. We'll be having our annual school board forum on Tuesday, May 3rd. Before we go, though, if you do have questions for us or thoughts for future guests, you can contact us at Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page at COZGUYTHO@AOL.com or Inside Government 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York. As you know from tonight, we did ask some viewer questions. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. Have a good night. Stick with us for an update on the Doubledays. But otherwise, have a great tomorrow. Be safe, get vaccinated or boosted, wear a mask, and see us on next Tuesday.